All right, today we're gonna draw a Jenga tower in 2-point perspective. We're gonna use measuring points so we can make sure that it's an actual Jenga tower. And we're gonna remove, I think, 5 blocks. So I think the assignment requires 5. So that's what we'll do. So to get started, I've just taped a piece of paper down onto a bigger sheet of paper. My drawing's gonna be on this page, but because I want my cone of vision to be bigger, my vanishing points are going to need to extend off my page. And so I've got this page attached on top of another page. And the first thing we got to do is put in an eye level. We want to establish where we're looking. And so I'm going to use my ruler here. Just carefully measure. We can do this a few ways. If we want the Jenga tower to be below our eye level, then we can leave the eye level pretty high. If we want the Jenga tower to extend above, which is I think what I'm going to do, then we can put the eye level a little bit lower. And that'll actually work to our favor because that'll give us a bigger cone of vision to work with. So let's come down to, like, I'm going to do 6 inches down here. And I'm going to put a little mark here. And then I'm going to come over here and measure 6 inches down and put a little mark. And that way I can extend this line across the page. So, and by measuring down the same on both sides, it should keep this line perfectly horizontal, which will make the drawing work better. And I'm just going to extend this line past the other way. I don't know exactly where things are going to fit quite yet. But I know that this is my eye level, so everything below this will appear like it's lower, and anything above will appear like it's above. So the next thing we need to do is we can figure out where we want the line of sight to be if we wanted to, but since this is 2-point perspective, doesn't matter quite as much. But what does matter is I need to establish one vanishing point and then use that to establish my station point. And so instead of starting with a line of sight and then just picking a station point, I'm gonna actually start with a vanishing point. And I'm just gonna put a vanishing point somewhere over here off this page. And I'm gonna call this VP1. We'll go ahead and label these. So VP1, and that's on the eye level. So I'll just put EL there for eye level, vanishing point 1. Now we know in 2-point perspective that from the station point, if we have an object down here at the station point, it's a perfect right angle from one vanishing point to the other vanishing point. And then as you move in and get to the eye level, it looks like that. And then as it goes above the eye level, it looks something like that. Okay. And so I've got this triangle here that's got a 90-degree angle here, and I can put that on here, but I know that my other vanishing point has to be at 45 degrees. And honestly, if I put the station point here, that's not actually all that optimal, because that means my cone of vision is going to be really small. I want to get that station point as far away as possible. And so to help with that, what I can do is I can use my ruler as kind of an extension. So I can move this down and get this a little lower and see how low I can get this without running my vanishing point off the page. You can tell here it's not going to fit. And I actually may, because of that, change where this is, because I've got room to go further. So let's get rid of that as the vanishing point, and let's put the vanishing point further here. So there's vanishing point 1. Okay, and now I can get this a little bit lower down, but I still need it to angle to somewhere where it's still going to be along this line. But the further back we view it, the more it'll look as it would appear in real life. Right, so we want to move that station point as far back as we can. And so if I use my ruler here, and then I can find another straight edge or another ruler and extend this way. Then now both my vanishing points, there's vanishing point 1. I have a station point that'll be right here. And I have VP2 that'll be right there. So VP1 and VP2. And my station point will be where these two lines intersect, right there. So right there is my station point. So that's where I'm looking into this scene from. And now that I have that, it's pretty easy for me to put in a line of sight. You don't really need the line of sight, but it's helpful for establishing the cone of vision. And so I'm going to use it. And I'm going to put in a line of sight right here, but very lightly. Make sure it's perfectly vertical. And I'll put in that, okay? And I'll extend it up further. Make sure that it's perfectly straight. There we go, okay? So this is where my head is. My eyes are right at this level looking into this scene, okay? All right, then the next thing I wanna do is put in my cone of vision. And the cone of vision, so the line that goes from one vanishing point to the other vanishing point is 90 degrees, okay? The cone of vision is 60 degrees, 30 on either side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lightly draw it in. Okay, and then I can flip this over. That. Oh, that was not in the right place. I don't know how I messed that up. But we'll just ignore this line here. But the point is that this is 30 degrees and this is 30 degrees. And so together it's 60 degrees. And we want our Jenga tower to exist within this space. I don't think my compass is quite big enough. It might be close. Not quite. But the cone of vision literally is a cone. It looks like we might get it. And so we'll see if I can do this. Pretty close, right there. So everything that is inside this circle, of course I had to slip. Everything that's inside this circle will be in focus. Everything that's outside will be a little bit wonky, okay? So when I decide where to put my Jenga tower, I'm gonna try to fit it inside of this area. Okay, and this is our setup, right? We could draw anything that we wanted and it would appear correct inside of this space, okay? So for the Jenga tower to get started, we need to put a ground measuring line in. And so I wanna just kind of figure out where the bottom corner is gonna touch, and I'm gonna bring it down pretty low, right inside the bottom of this cone of vision. Make sure it's perfectly horizontal. And this line kind of represents the picture plane, kind of an imaginary sheet of glass that's dropped down in front of us. And the front corner of our Jenga tower will hit somewhere along this line. And I'm just going to draw this out. Okay. And this is my ground measuring line. So it's my GML. Okay, ground measuring line. So if the Jenga tower's in this world somewhere, then the real measure, like if this is, I don't know, what is this, 2 inches maybe? Yeah, so 2 inches. So if it was pressed up against this imaginary sheet of glass, we could actually measure it and it'd be 2 inches. But as it goes back into space, it's gonna shrink. So now what I've got to do is decide where I want the corner to be. I can put the corner right on the line of sight, and that might make actually pretty good sense, but it's important to distinguish. Right now, this is the line of sight. It's not my Jenga tower, okay? But I'm gonna say that my Jenga tower is gonna line up right on it. So I'm gonna put this corner basically right on that line. So I'm saying it's right in front of me, okay? Just because it's convenient, and I can start with this corner. So I want to figure out how tall it's going to be. And if I put my ruler down here, it looks like inches will work pretty good. So I could make my Jenga tower 10 blocks tall, and each would be an inch. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to mark it at inch intervals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's do 8. Just to save some time. You could go 10 if you wanted. But as long as it's 7 or 8 tall, we're pretty good. So this is the top of my Jenga tower. This is the bottom. Okay. And I can start to put these lines out there. So for example, the bottom is going to go to this vanishing point here somewhere. I don't know where it's going to end yet. And so I'm going to draw this in pretty light. And it's going to stop before it gets out here. So I'm not going to continue the line very far. And then the top of my tower is going to go down to that same vanishing point. Remember, with the logic of 2-point perspective, for the actual drawings, for the lines that are part of the final drawing, they either go to a vanishing point here, or they are straight up and down. That's the only options, okay? So I know that my angles are gonna go to the vanishing points, and then this side is gonna fade back that way. And you'll notice it looks like this side's a little steeper than the other side, and that's just fine. Okay, so the problem that I run into next is I don't know where my Jenga tower ends yet, right? We need to know where it ends. And for that, we need to use our ground measuring line. And a Jenga tower has 3 blocks that go this way and 3 blocks that'll go this way, kind of stacked, they alternate. But I kind of got to figure out where those are. And so what we're going to do is kind of theoretically, we're going to bring this out till it hits and measure along the ground measuring line. So you see how that works here in a second. But I know I need 3 spaces. So in real life, like in the physical world, we'll say that each Jenga block is 1 inch wide as well as tall. Okay. So I've got 1, 2, 3 spaces on this side. And then I have 1, 2, and 3 spaces on this side. Okay, and so these are going to swing up to that side, and these will swing up. But what we need to do is figure out where they swing up to. For that, I'm going to grab a sheet of scratch paper. It's just a piece of paper. I've kind of torn an edge off. But the way measuring points work is you measure the distance between the vanishing point and the station point. Okay. and they swing up onto the horizon line. And since this is VP2, this point here will become measuring point 2. This measuring point works with this vanishing point. And then it's going to be a different distance over here, so we need to do it again. So again, I'm going to put a little dot here. I'll just put the corner right on that dot. And then I'll put a dot here. So I'm the distance between this vanishing point and the station point, and swing that up. And then right there. And so this is vanishing point 1, so this is measuring point 1. And so I can use these measuring points I've just created to help me figure out where in space these rows and columns are going to be. Okay, so this line here is going to this vanishing point. So I'm going to use the measuring point that goes with it. And we're going to start at the ground measuring line and swing up to the measuring point. And I'm going to draw really lightly. This is not a part of the drawing. This is just a guide. And so really lightly, I'm going to go right up to where it hits. And that is where the first column of my Jenga tower is going to be. And then the second column will come from here. So again, very lightly, just till it hits. That's the second column. And then the third. And when you do it this way, you don't have to guess. Each column is going to get systematically smaller each time you go back, because the angle gets a little sharper as you move, right? And so we could take this all the way up, and by the time you got clear back here, the angles would be really small. So, but now we know where the column, this one right here, this is where our tower ends. We need to find out on this side, and we can start filling that in. This line goes to this measuring point, or vanishing point, so that means we need to use the measuring point that goes with it. And so we're going to switch over to this one. And again, these lines will swing into space and tell us what it looks like when it's turned, right? It's turned away from us slightly. All right. Okay, so there's the back of this side of my Jenga tower. So now I know where the limits are, and I can come in and I can draw these things in. It's a little tricky because I've got it above my eye level. And so to keep this line perfectly vertical, I'm going to use the top of the page. And with this triangle, it actually fits, so that's nice. If not, you can use a smaller triangle and just do the bottom half. And then once you have this line in, then you can use your ruler and extend that line above. But it's important, remember, every line has to be perfectly vertical or go to a vanishing point. So we'll extend these up. And again, I'm going to do this really lightly right now because every other one of these is going to disappear, right? So really lightly, this one's going to come up there. And then here's my next one. Okay, and I'm being really careful and slow and precise. Okay, and then the last one where it ends. Okay. So these are my 3 columns on this row, and I got to come over and do this side now. So a little tedious, but we'll get through it. Push that over just a teeny bit. Make sure that I'm right on that intersection. And come up to there. And we'll come over a little bit. Okay. So now we've got all our columns in, right? And then we got to put in our rows. So the rows will go on everyone. And so I can draw these in a little bit firmer because they're going to stay for now. So first one is there. And each time I rotate, I'm going to stop and check and make sure that I'm right on the vanishing point. Precision matters on these. If you even get just a little bit wonky, it ruins the effect. So I stop and check and make sure my lines are going the right ways. You'll notice when I'm holding my ruler, I always have 2 fingers far apart. If you only put 1 finger, your ruler can twist a little bit. And so by having it 2, I lock it down. Okay. So far, so good. It's a little tricky on the next one, and I'll show you why here. So this dot is actually slightly above eye level, but it's going to be competing with the horizon line. And so I think before I put this line in, I'm just going to come in with an eraser and actually get rid of the horizon line. I wouldn't see it anyway because it's behind the tower. But I'm gonna get that out of there just so it doesn't compete. I'll have to redraw a little bit of my columns, but it's gonna be worth it just to plan ahead and get that out of there, okay? And now I can come back here and get right to the vanishing point and right to that line. And get that in the right spot, and I'm not competing with that other line that's behind it. It's a pretty subtle difference, and I probably could have just faked it a little bit, but I didn't want to. Okay, I put in the other side too, just because I was thinking about it. I got to put in this last column here. So again, and you notice what happens to the lines when they get above the eye level, right? So now my lines are slanting down. So below the eye level, they slant up, 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 and get straighter and straighter. And when they hit it, they start to go the other way. And so if we kept drawing this taller, they'd get more and more slanted as they came up. But for us, this should be pretty good, okay? And we're gonna do this the other way. Make sure I get my lines lined up perfectly. I'm using a really sharp pencil, and I'm using an HB, if you can see that. You don't want to use like a 6B or a 4B. They're too soft and they'll dull fast, and you'll get really dark fuzzy lines that smear easy. Just nudge that a little bit. Okay. Okay. So there we are, other than these vertical lines where I kind of erased a little bit there. We can gently put those back in. I'm I'm not gonna put in the, I'm gonna put in the corners for now, just so I can see everything, but I don't wanna put in these missing spots until I know for sure where they're gonna be. So we'll just go here to the edge and draw that. Okay. Okay, so there's the start of our Jenga tower. And I'll stop the video here. We'll do a second video showing how to remove some of the different blocks, okay?